Welcome in, belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman fantasy football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I am joined by Mr. Bernie. How you doing today, Bernie?
I'm doing well, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And this is episode 85, a positional preview. And we're going to start our preview off with the quarterback position. But before we get any further along, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingman Assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, welcome back to our season 3. Again, this is our second episode of season number 3. If you missed us, just go ahead and check out that last episode of season number 1 with our first time in the new bar scene. But before we get into our positional previews, which I'm excited to hear your take on the quarterback position, Bernie.
I've got a take.
Oh, you got some takes? All right, we will get into that. Let's get into some player news. All right, starting off with Christian McCaffrey. He has been nursing a calf injury, but he was seen on the side field on Thursday doing some drills, indicating that he would be working his way towards a return soon. CeeDee Lamb is still looking for a contract extension and is continuing his holdout, and the time is ticking before we have to. That's going to be part of our discussion, figure out what we think about guys holding out and for how long and how it affects their outlook for the coming season. But CeeDee Lamb has not been on the field waiting for a contract extension, similar to Jamar Chase, who was holding in, but now has missed a couple days of practice as he too is looking for a contract extension. And some bad news for the Lions. We have Jahmyr Gibbs sustained a hamstring injury earlier in the week, although it is not deemed to be long-term. The Lions are saying he should be ready for the opening of the season in week number 1. Puka Nacua is nursing himself a knee injury, but he is deemed week to week, and Sean McVay says there is no doubt, this is a quote, no doubt that he will be ready for week 1. Sam Laporta, another Lion dealing with a hamstring injury, has been missing practice, although it is considered minor. Amari Cooper left Thursday's practice early with an undisclosed injury, but the Browns coaching staff seemed to indicate that it was just general soreness. And Malik Neighbors had a scare with an ankle injury, but it is deemed to be a low ankle sprain, minor at that, and he was back on the field today and looks like he's not going to miss any time at all. Brandon Ayuk is still looking for a long-term deal with the Niners, and there is a trade out there ready to be accepted from the Steelers, but the Niners are going to exhaust all their chances to keep Ayuk in the building, but he may be on a long-term deal or on a new team anytime, any moment. Alvin Kamara has missed the last 2 days of practice with back tightness, and Christian Kirk, Jaguars receiver, is dealing with a calf injury, and that'll sideline him for the rest of this week, and he's going to miss the preseason game. Dak Prescott of the Cowboys is also working to get a contract extension. And although there's some good news now is that talks are progressing and there's a chance they might get the deal done before the season. Deontay Johnson, who now plays for the Panthers, is nursing a groin injury and is not expected to be serious. The Kansas City Chiefs starters are expected to play most of the first half this Saturday against the Lions. So we get a good chance to see what the players for the Chiefs this weekend. And except for Hollywood Brown of the Chiefs, who is dealing with a shoulder/chest injury, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. All right, Bernie, that was a lot of news there. Is there anything that caught your attention on the rundown or anything you want to add?
Oh, that was a lot of news. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb both want to get paid.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen for both of them?
I probably will. I missed one thing. I didn't scroll down, and potentially the biggest news, J.J. McCarthy, rookie quarterback for the Vikings, had knee surgery to repair a meniscus, and he's going to be out for the season. A tough blow for the rookie for the Vikings. That one stings.
Yeah, good thing we don't have early drafts. That would have been a tough call.
He was a player I was looking at as, if not a draft pick, but at least to keep an eye on for like a week 3, 4, 5 waiver wire pickup type of player.
Outside of that, it's pretty standard for week 2 of the preseason, week 3 of the preseason.
So there's been a lot of players that are just getting nicked. I haven't liked the injuries this year. There's been, well, for good, no one's being out for the season except for a couple players, obviously. But there are all these nagging type injuries that you're just not like Cooper Cup last year with his hamstring injury. You're like, oh, he'll be
Yeah,
out a week or two. Ended up missing the first 5 games, and he re-aggravated it once or twice. These hamstring injuries are just killers for the momentum for your season.
they are, but I think like the average missed time for a hamstring is like 2.5 weeks. So
Okay,
it's not that big of a deal.
so they don't.
Also,
Go ahead.
not to take anything away from these guys, they're professionals. They're the best at what they do. But it sounds like there's like a conditioning issue going on. Maybe the off season needs to be taken a little bit more seriously.
Well, I don't know if you've heard. So Christian Watson, receiver for the Packers, he's notorious for having hamstring issues. They actually did. I don't know if it was X-ray, some kind of uh, way to look at his hamstring and notice that one
Mhm.
was way thinner than the other one. That actually was like a chronic hamstring issue he had.
Oh, wow.
And I guess he was working with the training staff on the offseason to try and build that up so that wouldn't happen. Like he had one that was ready to be injured at any moment just by his genetics or however he was working out his whole life prior.
Yeah, I guess that's just one of those quirks.
Yep, yep. All right. So, what you're here for, guys? We're here for the positional preview. Quarterbacks. These are the guys who score the most points on our fantasy teams. They get the least amount of respect pre-draft, anyway. We always talk them down at pre-draft, and right when the draft's over, we wish we had all the best ones. I know that I went streaming quarterbacks maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and it was the worst experience of my life, fantasy football wise. I know you had to stream yourself 2 seasons ago. How did you think that went for you, or how did you enjoy the process?
Actually, I didn't mind the process that much. That was the first time I had ever streamed quarterbacks, and it wasn't horrible. Um, I think if I'm gonna wait, then I'm gonna commit to the wait, and I'm gonna commit to the stream. Um, so it's just kind of one of those things. If that's your plan, stick to it. If
Do
it's not your
you
plan, then you don't want to do it because
do
it
you
is a bit of a headache.
yeah, did you plan on streaming, or just the values never came to you to get a quarterback that you were interested in?
No, so most of the time, if I am not getting the quarterback I want, it means that I can't get the stack that I want, and then I'll just go ahead and consider late round, and if it's not a great late rounder, then I'm gonna be streaming.
So usually, so there were years where I was doing very well in this league, and then I had a drought for about, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, and I was trying to figure out what were the winning teams doing, and they always had a top two quarterback. And for a while there, I was getting away with having like say two guys in the top 10, like the Matt Ryan, Russell
Right.
Wilson range. And those guys worked out pretty well for me. I would just, in a way, I would stream those guys off of my own team. And, a quarterback that's 8 for the season has several top 5 weeks. And if
Yeah,
you get a couple of them and you pick the right ones, go ahead.
I understand that, but then it comes down to their top 2 quarterbacks, but when were they drafted? You know, if we're looking back at it after the fact, were those guys drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round? Or are they getting drafted in the 4th and 5th round with everybody else? 6th and 7th round where the value starts at that round, you know? It's
Right.
one of those things. I believe Jordan Love was the quarterback on the winning roster last year.
That's interesting that and you were correct. So you'll still see in the WDK we offer strength of schedule in terms of fantasy points scored per position.
Yeah.
And so last year the top quarterbacks who finished the year in the top 5, 4 of the top 5 actually had middle of the road strength of schedule ease, but they're good quarterbacks like your Josh Allen's, your
Right.
Hurts, your Lamar Jackson. You could either say they're good quarterbacks or they're running quarterbacks. So that might be the trait that makes them be able to handle not having an easy schedule.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott was in there as well, and he had also a middle of the road schedule. The only player who was in that top 5, 6, wherever it ended up, who had an easy run was Jordan Love. And his last 5 games were all green, and that's when he started to pick up. So the way I kind of looking at it now, good quarterbacks, and we're going to talk
Right.
about which ones we think are actually good quarterbacks. Good quarterbacks don't need easy schedules. They just need to not have the hardest schedule possible. For example, they're good. They can overcome regular games.
Right.
Medium quarterbacks, if you will, might need that easy schedule to become good fantasy quarterbacks. So I'm wondering now if Jordan
Yeah.
Love is a good quarterback or just took advantage of a nice schedule, especially one that got nicer as the season went along.
Well, based on that information, I'm gonna have to move Kirk Cousins up quite a bit on my draft board, because the defenses in the NFC South suck.
And did you notice today that the Atlanta Falcons are like revamping their defense on the fly with big time Pro Bowler free agents and signings
Yeah.
and trades?
Yeah. So it's one of those maybe Kirk doesn't need to be QB 32 on my list. I'll move him up a little bit.
The interesting thing, though, again, how I said, what quarterbacks might need that easy schedule. Jordan Love once again has the easiest schedule for quarterbacks this year. Once
Oh,
again,
geez.
now I haven't looked at how it breaks down from beginning to end. Like last year was the end, but he has overall he has the easiest schedule for quarterbacks.
Well, we'll find out if MJ Red Sox Nation is in love. So if
If he's going to repeat.
maybe he can pick him up again and try for that back to back to back to back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't want to think about it. Don't want to think
Yeah.
about it. All right, so let's get into some of our quarterback rankings here to start off the season. Of course, these have a chance to be amended as we get closer to the start of the season. But
Oh
starting
yeah.
out with here, I'm going to reveal my top three, and we're going to see where you are, and let's see what we have going on here. So my
All
top
right.
three is Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and I have them in one tier. Where are you starting out with your top three?
Ooh, well, I've got two out of those three. I've got Hertz as number one, and then I've got Lamar Jackson running to the second position, and then Josh Allen number three, who just pushes Mahomes to number four. But within those top 4 or 5, they're pretty interchangeable there.
So your top tier is four players deep.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say it's Hertz, Jackson, Allen, Mahomes.
Okay. Well, my fourth is Lamar Jackson. So we have the same top four. We just switched our 3 and 4.
Yeah,
So that's, but I do have a tier break there because Lamar Jackson, he's a boomer bust type of quarterback in terms of fantasy. I'm not talking about wins or losses or quality of play, but there's times where he doesn't do much stat wise, and other times he has those monster games.
yeah, and for the audience to just take into consideration when I read off these names is that I like to swing for the fences, so it's a big boomer bust players I
Okay.
like, and I typically stay away from Jets, Bills, and Patriots just because I just don't want to root for them. So as much as Allen could be the number one QB off the board, he could put those numbers up again. I don't want to put him up there.
So my question here of this group, these are pretty standard top 3, 4 guys.
Yeah,
Top two for well, anyway, top 3, 4 guys. Now, my question, being that you mentioned you're generally in general cases avoid
yeah.
Bills. Do you think Josh Allen having a younger, more inexperienced receiving core is going to hurt his fantasy production this year? Or you think he does what he does, doesn't matter who's on the field?
I think he is like Lamar Jackson, a boomer bust this year. I think without Diggs, um, without who's the UCF guy, Gabe Davis, I think it's going to be a lot harder for him. I think he probably needs more time to build a rapport with his receivers, which he had with those two guys. So I think he could go off, but it's a, a much lower floor than it was last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty nervous about him, honestly, because if you think about what happened to Mahomes last year, he was the number one quarterback the year prior,
Right.
and I believe so. If not, he was one or two, and then he lost some of his receivers, even what guys were just kind of medium because Tyreek Hill was already gone, but like he lost a couple receivers and or the receivers that he had like Kelsey are aging, and he had a precipitous drop. Either it was a lack of trust with some of his players,
Oh
or
yeah.
they started their defense got better and their running game got better. They didn't need
Yep.
to throw as much. So it was as much situational and circumstantial as it was quality of play from Mahomes. Although I watched all those games and he didn't look so good to me watching those games. But that's what I kind of worry about with Josh Allen. Potentially dropping down. Otherwise, he'd be number one on my list by far. But that rushing touchdown potential, it
Yeah.
just keeps him in his floor is 4. He's not gonna be any worse than 4 no matter what he does.
I agree with that. I think that is a big part of it. So I think we're spot on there.
Okay, let's get to our next section, our next tier, if you will, or I'm gonna go with mine, like Lamar
Oh
Jackson.
wait,
already
wait,
stated.
wait, wait, wait,
Oh, go
wait.
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we just gonna give the WDK away right now? Are we gonna leave any sort of suspense and mystery?
All right. Well,
Let's move. Let's move to the middle of the pack.
why don't we
Let's
bounce
move to the
around and
middle
we'll
of
do
the
them in groups and you can figure out what tier they might be in. How's
pack.
that? So I
That
still haven't
sounds
grouped
good.
because usually when I group these guys together, even when they are in tiers, they're styles of quarterback. It's like the pocket quarterback who's a little older, the up and coming runner who I'm not sure if he's really good, like like Justin Fields
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
past. So like they're in groups, but sometimes that group for one person can be three or two or three, and for another person that could be a 5 or 6 tier. But it's still a group of players that tend to lump themselves together. So
Yeah.
we're gonna jump to what I think is the hardest one for me.
Okay.
So this is a little tip. He's not as high as you think he will be for most players. You get the WDK to find out exactly where I have him. But Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels, I have in their own group. And one guy's a second year, one guy's a rookie. And we've seen a little bit from Anthony Richardson, so we know he can get those 30-point games. Jaden Daniels, we aren't sure at all. But these guys are just as question marks. They've equal questions for me.
Yeah. I have both of them actually right next to each other.
Okay.
I have Richardson and Daniels, one going before the other. You get the WDK if you want to know exactly where they are.
Well, I noticed you definitely have them higher than I do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that Richardson is the next guy that since your brother Crazy Fish is coming back, is that's what I heard, right?
Yes.
I think it might be a run on the Colts.
Yeah.
So, I think he's probably coming back because he knows if he can get Anthony Richardson, he could possibly win it all. And then Jaden Daniels, I think with Dan Quinn and Kingsbury, if you remember when Quinn had Shanahan on the Falcons, that's when Matt Ryan was at his peak fantasy value for that.
Timeout. We
Okay.
cannot compare Shanahan and Kingsbury.
No. You can't. But what I'm saying is it's the combination of the
Okay.
defensive minded head coach that's just going to let that offensive mind
Gotcha.
do his offensive thing.
Gotcha.
And with Kingsbury, I mean, he's not a bad offensive coordinator. I mean, he's got the talent to make that team better than what they have been.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I haven't fully fledged it out, but Washington's one of those. I've got like 3 or 4 sneaky teams. I
Yeah.
think Washington's probably on the bottom of the trust of these up and coming sneaky ones, but they are in the sneaky team list for me as potential. Again, the defense is not great. They're going to be better, so they're going to be able to still. They're not going to be out of games, but they're going to be behind. That's
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
want. You want that team to be down 3 to 10 points, where they've got to play well, but it's not like, oh, we got like last year Carolina, they just gave up by the time the second half came around. It was just garbage. It was nasty.
Exactly.
All
So,
right, let's see so that was a hard little group for me. You have them higher than I do. Another group, these are I don't say they're older. Actually, 2 of these guys were drafted the same year. We've got the Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, and Matthew Stafford group.
boy.
What do you think about those guys, their potential, their style of plays, and how they might fit in this year in the rankings?
So, in my honest opinion,
Okay, that's what we're here for. Yeah.
as non-fantasy, just football players, I think Stafford is great. I think Tua is almost great. He's
Okay.
really, really good. He's just young enough where he needs to get those W's to be great. And then I think Herbert is still, for me, still someone that just hasn't shown that he can win the games. Now, as far as fantasy goes, stats wise, I would put Tua ahead of both of them just because of the coach and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Okay.
it's one of those things where that offense is just a money offense. So
Do
the
you
only downside to Tua is him scrambling and running and getting those extra yards or possibly a touchdown. So
Gotcha. Do you think the new coaching staff in LA for the Chargers that they're definitely their pedigrees are run first style of coaching staff that's going to hinder or help Justin Herbert?
no, I think anything will help him at this point.
I don't. I agree.
Yeah, I think he's got the potential. He's got the talent. It might be more of a mental game for him as far as getting to that next level of being a winner and not necessarily stats, just a winner. And once
Right.
you're a winner, the stats will come.
There you go. So, like I said to you guys last week, we're just a local type of show here, and we are like you guys. We listen to other content out there, and I'm
Yep.
gonna cite one of the shows I listen to and I enjoy very much, the Fantasy Footballers, and they do a lot of deep dives as well. And they mentioned that the Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, that the amount of passes that his teams have attempted through his span have always been 29 or lower. That as a coaching philosophy, they
Right.
attempt the fewest passes as a coordinator than any other coordinators in the league. But they're not always, but they're not the bottom in scoring, and they're not the bottom of total offense. They're just in the bottom of total pass attempts. And an interesting thing is that last year, can you guess which team had the least amount of pass attempts?
I would say the Arizona Cardinals.
It was the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh,
They had the
really?
least amount of pass attempts, yet Purdy was in the top five in all counting stats. When you have a good running
Well,
game and you throw
yeah,
one good play action pass, you can get 80 yards. I'm not saying 80 yards all the time, but like you can get 40 yards on one play instead of doing three plays 10 yards a pop.
exactly. But his screen game with Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, I mean, those speed guys, when they're coming off the edge and it's a little dink and dunk, he might not need the 5 or 6 passes to get down the field to get,
I don't
the
disagree.
25 to
I'm just
50
saying I'm
yards.
saying
Yeah.
number of passes. That's an efficiency, like that's a cumulative stat, not an efficiency stat. And you can
Yeah.
get yards and scores by being efficient in the touches you get and how you use them. It's not like Sam Howell last year had the most pass attempts in the league. How good was
Yeah.
he compared to Purdy, for example? I know they're different teams, but I'm
Right,
just
right,
saying
right.
saying that a team is in the bottom third in throwing
Well,
pass
yeah, I
attempts
mean,
doesn't necessarily mean they have a bad offense.
you're not going to say anything is an absolute when it comes to these games and these
True.
players. But you still have to play those number games. It might be different with the quarterback, but if you're behind, you're going to be passing, so you're already in a better position to get the yards
Right.
with all of that junk passing that you're doing, just because you're throwing the ball 50, 60 times. It's just it's just math at that point. But again, these are players that are value picks. I mean, you're not going to
Right.
draft these guys until 8, 9, 10 rounds.
All three of
So
these guys, but Herbert's being left for dead. He's going in the 10th, 11th, 12th round when he was a third round pick, fourth round pick just a year or two ago.
yeah, didn't you have him on your team
Yeah, he's
two
let me
years in a
down
row?
twice. I traded him away last year, but so there's another thing. We'll take a little break from the rankings here just to break it up. So, what
Yeah.
is your philosophy on when to pick quarterbacks or how many quarterbacks to pick?
So it really comes down to your perception of where those top tier guys, those top three, the top four, how far are they away from the next set down? The middle of the pack guys. Is it a huge swing in fantasy points compared to the other elite player you might get in that draft position? So for me, unless I know 100% that I'm going to get that big stack, like I said earlier, if I'm going to get, if I'm going to get, the Mahomes Kelsey, if I'm going to get, the money stack, then I'm going to go big early. But if I'm not going to get it at this point, I'm drafting a quarterback starting in the 7th round.
So, I know it's just our league. So there's usually that I don't know what tier you want to call it, third or fourth tier where there's a guy I really want, but I don't
Hmm.
know. You can't tell if you're going to get him or not because that's the guy is your value pick, and you want to wait as long as you can. But if they go, you didn't get it at all. So I found myself recently not necessarily aiming for two quarterbacks early, but if I don't, I'm not gonna take whenever there's a receiver run and I don't like who's next or a running back run I'm like that guy's not a third round running back. I can get him in the fifth. I'll pivot to the another position. And quarterback, I find I can get is easy way to go. I don't like these guys. Let me just get a top three quarterback while I'm here. You know what I mean?
Right,
Instead of getting an 18th running back when I can get the 20th running back 2 rounds later, kind of
right,
thing.
right.
So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
find myself drafting quarterbacks early because of just shifting on where the values are, if you will. But I've also noticed I've taken two quarterbacks a lot of times in the third and fifth round, sometimes third and fourth round if that bad hole is there, like I mentioned.
Right.
And then I'll still look for that value next tier guy that I want. And if I get him, now I can trade away one of my top two quarterbacks. And I know people say you can't trade quarterbacks. I've traded my second quarterback taken the last 2 years. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's always worked out, but I mean, when people are desperate, they have I know that they're not necessarily the most valuable position, but they have the biggest name value.
Yeah.
If you could trade Patrick Mahomes, just say in a weird world you had Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Why would you do that? It's just the way it fell. You didn't like the running backs, and you're like in the second and third round, or third and fourth round. And after 3 or 4 weeks, once you kind of figure out which guy you're going to settle in on, you tell me you can't get something for Patrick Mahomes?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're basically just you're holding on to your value chips at that point. You're going, but then it comes to the point where you're looking at a wide receiver and you're saying, okay, I'm going to get this quarterback, a a round earlier. Is this quarterback a round earlier? He's the best on the board for quarterbacks, but is his value better than this receiver that is not? He's second and third tier. He's still a number one receiver, but he's a second and third
Well,
tier.
if
There's
there's an
that fine line, and that's
right.
where your judgment comes
I'm
into
talking about
play.
like when that third tier gets dried up and now you go in the fourth tier and you're like, that's a receiver, a
But
three
his
or four
ADP
receiver.
is still higher than your quarterback that you're about to pick.
Not if it's Lamar Jackson or you know or Mahomes or somebody who fell to that fourth round or fifth round. I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, you're the one that goes on the quarterback runs all by yourself. So
True. Well, I don't always take the first quarterback, but I'm the first one to take a second quarterback. Let's put it that way. Let's take it that way.
Yeah.
Because in our league, you have to roster at least. I know other leagues have different roster configurations. In our league, you have to roster at least two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I'm just so the people out there knowing, like, it's not two
Exactly.
quarterbacks or nothing. You have to have two at some point, whether you take them early or late.
Know your league, know your stats, know your positions that you have to hold, know your how many bench spots you have. Those are all the little details that you got to take into consideration when you're making your own list or when you're using the wingman draft kit and trying to prioritize your players, just not reading it off exactly for what it is. Know your league.
All right,
So
I got another group of quarterbacks here.
okay.
They're a little lower here, but we're going to put this in the category of old guys coming off Achilles injuries. And I'm surprised this is not just one player in this group. There are two players in this group. We have Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. What's your thing on these guys? How do you have them high, low, middle in your rankings? Let's just keep it at that, I guess.
I've got Aaron Rodgers high, and a lot of that is name recognition. Garrett Wilson, Hall. He's got a good back behind him. So if he stays upright, he is still an MVP quarterback. He's still Aaron Rodgers. He's still intellectually superior than a lot of these other quarterbacks
That's
that
what
are
he'll
on
tell
here.
you.
Yeah. When it comes to football, let's just say when it comes to football. Listen, I don't want to take personal shots at any of these guys because I don't know these guys personally. This is just football talk. Yeah, you're good. But as far as Kirk goes, I mean, now it seems like I got to move Kirk Cousins up a little bit. So just thinking about those defenses in the South, and I have him pretty low. I'll let you guys in on that one. I have got Kirk Cousins. Where do I have him? I got him 19, QB 19 on my list.
I've got him 18 right now, so we're in the same spot.
But I got Aaron Rodgers only a couple spots up. I've got him at 14, a QB 14.
Okay.
So he's in that second, third tier for me.
Okay.
Maybe third.
Now this next group are guys that are generally speaking young guys or guys who had I'll just kind of read them off here. We got Will Levis, Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and Trevor Lawrence. One name stands out there. You would say Trevor Lawrence. I just haven't seen it. I don't trust him, so I'm not putting him. I feel like, I don't know. You tell me what you think about Trevor Lawrence. I know you're more of a fan of him than I am.
Yeah, I am. I'm out of that group. I would say I believe that Watson is the better player out of that group, but he's burned me, so it's hard for me to pick him again. But I have him and Lawrence right next to each other. So I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's one of those guys that he's stout when he's on the field, and he is willing to throw the ball. He's not afraid, and I think he's one of those true. You know what he reminds me of a little bit, maybe like a Phillip Rivers, where he's just going to be consistently not going to let you down kind of guy.
Do you remember Phillip Rivers?
Yeah, I do. But
Okay.
okay,
You let a
let's
lot of people down a lot of times.
we're only talking stats now though, right? So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I've never seen someone fumble and kneel down to lose a game.
It just seems
Okay.
like he's a good he's like they're like Matt Ryan's, you
Okay.
know? It's like you're just you know what you're gonna get from that player.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so you know,
So on this group here, I'm nervous to say, and I would never put money on it. I think potentially, I think Bryce Young is going to have a sneaky bounce back year. I think he got just. I
mm,
think everything was. I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm not saying I would put money on it. But he's
yeah,
someone I'm going to keep an eye on. Just as I have a feeling he's got some better receivers. Deontay Johnson, Thielen did well for what he could do
mhm,
for as long as he could, keep that, sustain that energy level, if you will.
yeah, yeah,
But they changed their coaches. They've got a much better offensive coach over there now, or at least someone who's had more success more recently.
yeah,
And he's what's the reclamated a lot of quarterbacks, including Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith. That's Canales, the coach
yeah,
over at the Panthers now. So he's got a quarterback whisperer of such. Both of his receivers are possession type receivers, so he's got guys who can get open quickly. I'm not saying it's going to turn into fantasy value because you need more than that. You need touchdowns, but I
yeah.
think he's going to, being how bad he was last year, I think he's going to surprise and be a serviceable NFL player, not necessarily a fantasy player. Do you have any thoughts on Bryce Young, or is he just
No, I don't. I think you've got all the thoughts on Bryce Young.
okay?
I honestly, he was just a stat on the list. As far as fantasy goes,
Right.
as a player, I think he's going to do much better than he did last year. It's just hard to put him into a talking point group.
Gotcha.
I Even in the lower rounds, I might jump on. I don't know. Let's throw a name out here that's below, like Bo Nix. I might jump on Bo Nix because we don't know, and uh, he might have a stellar year.
If
And
if
you
you're
know,
in a
my
league that gives you points for completion percentage, Bo Nix
yeah,
is your guy. He is going to
yeah,
throw 27 for 30 and I got 118 yards.
yeah,
You get bonus points for completions percentage. That's your guy right there.
yeah. Right, right. Okay, so I got a question for you.
Yep, yep.
Okay, these are your receiving core right here. Okay,
Okay.
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and the rookie Rome Dunze.
Yep.
That's a good quarterback, right? That's a good quarterback points right there.
I, yeah, I would. He's got all the makings. I don't know if he can sustain any one of those guys on their own, but as a collective,
Yeah,
if they all get 80% of what they have gotten in the past because they're sharing, or even 60% of what they've got in
yeah,
the past, but now they're sharing it, and you got three guys getting 60. That's still more than 100%.
yeah. It is, but if those two guys, if Moore and Allen can produce and stay healthy, that's the other kicker.
Yes,
I think he's got the capability of being a high middle tier quarterback.
he's very good. It's hard to trust the Bears offensively just over time
Yeah,
in our lifetimes, but yeah, they've got all the pieces. You've got a very savvy rookie. We'll see what that turns out when he gets big defenses on him and stuff. But he looks like he's got the juice.
yeah. I mean, I've been watching the Hard Knocks, and he seems to speak well. So, it's like his cognitive ability might be there, as far as figuring things out. So,
Did you draft Trevor Lawrence his rookie year, or was that Ben?
no, I did not.
I was gonna say how would you how early in terms of this draft order would you have
Uh,
taken Caleb Williams this year compared to Trevor Lawrence when he was a rookie? If you had any thought, if you any remember of what you thought of Lawrence,
no, I probably
because
I can't I
Lawrence
can't
came out
remember.
as a surefire stud.
He did, but I don't think he had the caliber of receivers that
So
Caleb
okay,
has
so the
now.
tiebreaker is his receiving core.
Yeah, I think so.
If not better on his own.
If Trevor Lawrence came out on the Bears on this team right now,
Gotcha.
I would have drafted him just as high, if not
Okay.
higher, than Caleb Williams.
Okay. That's very good. Yeah, like he just something I'm not sure about, but like you said, all if you
Yeah.
list all the good things, receiving core, he's getting the juice, the arm strength, or all the
Yeah.
ability to make all the throws. He's got all the magic. Let's see how it comes on the field. But yeah.
So, and the only downside to the
Okay.
Bears is that their projected O line rank is 24 for the season. So,
That's tough for a rookie, but he can
It
move.
is. It is tough. That is tough. So that's the only downside, and that's why he's not, top tier guy. But he's,
So
he's got that. He's got that potential.
So this is someone. This is one of my sneaky. I said I got a few sneaky teams I think who might be
Yep.
better than you think, and this is the one team that I think is gonna be better than we think, but also might actually not just better than we think, but might be better enough to be valuable or
Okay.
viable. Tennessee, Will Levis. What do you think about
Oh.
the Tennessee passing game here?
Oh, I like it. I like Will Levis. Sad to see Derrick Henry not there, but I think he's got a good potential. He's got slightly less potential than Anthony Richardson because I think Anthony's just a little bit more explosive. But I liked Will coming out of the draft. I thought actually I think I picked him up last year. Just
You did.
had
Yeah, I
him
think
on
you
my
didn't.
team
I think you
for a
didn't play
minute.
him in his big game, then you played him the rest of the season. He didn't
It-
do much after that,
yeah,
stat
I,
wise.
yeah. I think he's one of those guys where he looks the part. He plays the part. I think with the right support and the right game plan, I think he can be a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
He's I've heard this. I don't know if I haven't uh, dive deep enough to have this opinion, but like that he's like Josh Allen before Josh Allen became the stud.
No comment.
Okay, just a
um,
big strong guy with a big arm.
yeah, I could see that, but I think that uh, temperament wise, I think Will Levis is a little different than Josh Allen, and I think
How
that'll.
so? I'm just
I,
asking.
I think Will might be a little bit more on the
Hyper.
no, a little less hyper than
Oh,
Josh
okay,
Allen. I
okay,
think I think Will probably is able to rein that in and focus that energy a little bit more than Josh. I think
huh?
Josh doesn't have that focus where you kind of see that wild man a little bit. And his coaching staff and his teammates have to kind of tamper him down and not give the ball away.
All right. So I think I've got one more group here
Okay.
that we're going to talk about. At least how I have them grouped. You can tell me if
Yeah.
these got to be split up in your opinion. I've got Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow, and CJ Stroud. Now I know a lot of people look at that list and it's very all over the place, but I think these are the solid on good teams group.
Yeah. So I've got Stroud and Burrow above Love, and I've got all three of them above Goff. And I
Okay.
like and out of that set though, I like Goff the most. Um, but just all the factors coming in, I that's the way I have them falling as far as ranks go.
I have Goff ahead of that group as well. So yeah, I these are guys like I said, like they're steady to great. Burrow I think is great.
Yeah.
They have a really tough schedule, and I'm just not sure because he keeps coming off injury. So it's like you never get that like momentum built up where it's like, yeah, he was really good last year. He's coming in. He's always one step forward, one step back, and you always have to like reassess where you think he's coming from.
Right. So Burrow's got a top 5 receiver, right?
Yes,
Okay. Does Stroud have a top 5 receiver?
he's got two or three of them potential. Well, top five? No,
Top 5. No.
not top
Does
five.
does Jordan Love have a top 5 receiver?
No.
And Jared Goff definitely has a top 5 receiver.
Yes, I would say yes.
So, I mean, based on that, I would probably want Goff or um, Burrow ahead of the other two. But
Okay.
again, I like looking at those stacks.
Yeah,
If I could get those Chase and Burrow stack, that would be
that'd be great.
phenomenal. Yeah.
All right. So I think is there any other quarterbacks or quarterback draft types suggestions you have here while we got you?
Um, no, just if you are going to stream, and this is just based on my experience streaming, my limited experience streaming, don't get too caught up in having to change for the matchup. You can ride a guy a couple of weeks and not have to keep changing them out. It might not seem like you're streaming at that point, but if if the guy's hot, and just ride him. And unless that stout defense is showing up, and then maybe I got to bench him based on who you have to come in for his position. So that would really be it as far as strategies or anything like that goes.
And I would say along that same line, most guys don't good week, bad week, good week, bad week. They have a pocket of good,
Yeah.
and the rest of the season's just okay, if not bad. But if you can catch that guy in that pocket, like you're saying, this 3 out of 5 week section, 3 out of 4 week, 4 out of 5 week, and then ride him. And once you kind of see it's done, don't think it's coming back.
Exactly.
Move on to your next guy who's going to get his next pocket.
There you go. There you go. And one last thing for me.
Sure.
Um, if you can, you obviously picking players to win. We're playing this to win, right? We play to win the game. Draft guys that you like, draft guys that you want to root for. Where you want to go to the bar and you got all your TV set up and you want to root for our guys. Draft those guys. Make it fun, make it exciting, and then just have a good time and talk smack to your friends.
Great advice. All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Don't forget to check out wingmanfantasyfootball.com to check out and pre-register for your WDK copy there. It'll be released on end of business day on Monday, August 19th, and any revisions will be sent to your inbox as well. Don't forget, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube Music. If you want to see our video feeds, go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Wingman Fantasy Football. And you can get all of our content on wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And we'll see you next time.